Hey everybody, this is Dream, today we have a nice 7-game Major League Baseball slate. This is kind of the size of the slate that I tend to like, so I do think this is a really solid slate here. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? So let's go ahead and get into the slate here. So with the 7-game slate, we have some good pitching and some good bats, and there's a lot of value on the slate as well, so that's nice. Yesterday, out of our 25 home runs that were hit in the main slate, which was a huge slate, 13 of our batters hit for home runs, so that was really good. 13 out of 25 is not bad at all. Getting over 50% is really difficult, and so pretty happy with that result. Also did pretty well in that yesterday in fantasy as well, so we did solid. Uh, the hitters, by the way, are the ones that are listed in the top or value sections throughout the write-up that I do every day, so to keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and get into our pitchers today. Again, we got a nice little 7-game slate here. All these games actually have an 8.5 total, with the exception of the LA Dodgers San Francisco game, which has a 7.5 total right now. So very interesting slate from that perspective, but overall it should be a good one. We do have some pitchers we like today, so let's get into that first here. So the pitching today is kind of interesting because we have some tough matchups, but we have some strikeout guys. We basically have 5 guys that we're going to look at here as top options. My top overall option is going to be Valdez for Houston. Now, he has the weakest strikeout stuff of the 5 pitchers I mentioned, but he's done okay, and he's facing Oakland, who will strike out a lot. The concern here is that Oakland can hit some home runs, but he is not a guy that gives up a lot of home runs, so I do think he has a lot of opportunity here for a solid game. And he's relatively priced good, so at $8,800, and I do like him quite a bit. Then I'm going to look at Charlie Morton for Atlanta. Now he's underpriced here for his position, and Chicago Cubs have been absolutely dreadful in this series against the Braves, and I look for that to continue here. Morton has been pretty solid on the season. His strikeout rate is pretty good as well, and he's got one of the lower totals on the slate for the total against, so I think he's one of the better options. Then we're looking at Hoke for Boston. Now, he's got a riskier matchup here against Tampa Bay, but his strikeout rate is good, and so he definitely draws some good opportunity here to have a solid game. He has really good strikeout stuff, and he can score big fantasy points in times. He's a little bit overpriced today, but he's okay. Looking at Pablo Lopez, he's my 4th favorite guy here. Now, he's got a tougher matchup against the Yankees, who do have some home run potential in this one, and he has given up some home runs this season. And so he is a little risky, but his strikeout rate is really good and the best on the slate, so he's definitely worth a look from that perspective. And then, last but not least, John Gray for Texas. Now, he is facing Cleveland, who is one of the toughest teams to get strikeouts against, but he's been pretty solid lately. And if he can get 5 or more strikeouts, then he can definitely pay off here, as I don't really like Cleveland too much as a team from a fantasy perspective. But, he's a decent contrarian option, and he's the cheapest guy that I like on the slate. There's not much below those guys or even in the rest of the lineups here. We will have to wait and see who the Dodgers might have in with Yarbrough starting likely as the opener, so we could get some information about that later. But outside of that, that's pretty much what we're going to have for pitching. That said, we have a lot of value on the slate, so it's not actually that big of a deal if you want to pay up for pitchers today. And so we have a lot of different ways we can do it. So let's look at our catchers here. Now, Connor Wong comes off as the best overall top option for the catching position. He's also been phenomenal lately. He's got a pretty good price here, so he doesn't have to do a ton to pay off here, and I do like his upside in this matchup, so I think he's a great play on the slate. But some contrarian options off of him: Yanier Diaz for Houston, Bo Naylor for Cleveland as as kind of a good one-off here for Cleveland at $3,200, and then Ivan Herrera for St. Louis is a good one-off as well. But none of those 3 have as much upside as Connor Wong does today, so keep that in mind. Moving at first base, we'll start with Ohtani. Now, Ohtani has been absolutely phenomenal this season. I don't love the Dodgers today. I think he's going to be a little bit riskier. He does need to hit a home run to pay off at this ridiculous price, but he's definitely capable. Looking at Josh Naylor, he's a little pricey today as well, but his home runs have been coming in bunches, and he has been hitting the ball pretty well, so I do like his upside here. Matt Olson also strikes me as a decent play today. Though he has struggled to start the season, he's really starting to get it going the last few last week or so, and so I do think he's a viable play. And Freddie Freeman also lays out as a good play at this position. All four of these guys are almost identical in their fantasy potential today, so it's kind of just a pick 'em from that perspective. But if you want a value play, Nate Lowe looks like the best option for here. He's hit a home run yesterday. I look for him to come back and try to hit another one today. He looked really solid yesterday. He looks really solid today, and he's a great value play on the slate. Looking at second base, this position is not very top heavy. We have a couple guys, Altuve being a top option, though he's not going to be easy to roster at his price point today, and Marcus Semien as well for Texas, looking decent today. However, there's plenty of value at this position, and I don't really think you need to pay up at this one. So, but we do like quite a few guys here with Palacios for at $4,600, looking like a decent play here for Tampa Bay. Though this is a riskier matchup because I do like Boston's pitching, but I do think there's a couple guys on Tampa Bay worth a look. Now, if you want to go super cheap here, you can go to Grissom here for Boston, as he has some absolutely fantastic matchup metrics for this game. He hasn't really done much yet this season, but he definitely has the opportunity here. Nolan Gorman looks like a pretty decent value play for St. Louis in a plus matchup here. Even though he struggled this season, he's hitting the ball really good in the last week, and he definitely draws good potential. And then Julian for Minnesota is a good one-off option for Minnesota, as he's had some ups and downs, but he does have some home run potential today. Looking at our third baseman, we do have one guy that's expensive that we like, and that's Mr. Devers for Boston. Now, he's a little bit pricey, but he hasn't done a ton so far this season, but he's hitting the ball decently well, and he has a couple good games here, so he's got some opportunity. Chris Morel is a very good one-off for the Cubs. Now, he's kind of a high-risk, high-reward play, but he does have some home run upside in this one. Again, we're going to like Alex Bregman, as he's just underpriced, and right now he's hitting the ball very well. He's had 3 home runs the last 2 games, and let's see if he can continue that here against Oakland. He's really finding himself hitting the ball well the last couple weeks, and that gives him a lot of potential today, especially since he started the season so rough. But that has his price depressed as a result. Nolan Arenado also looks really good today. He's been struggling some this season, but he's one of the safer options on St. Louis, so he definitely looks like a solid option here as well. Looking at shortstops, we do like Corey Seager for Texas, though he's going to be hard to roster at the price point, and he's really not been as good as we'd hoped so far this season. We also like a couple value plays here. This position is very weak today, and so there's not a lot to like here, but if we want to go cheap here, we can look with a Romy at $2,300, Romy Gonzalez for Boston. If he ends up coming in and drawing the start, he'll be somebody I would consider as a value play, kind of a Hail Mary option at this position. But Rafala is also a good play for at $3,100 for Boston, as well, as he did manage to hit a home run yesterday, and he's been hitting the ball decently well when he gets opportunities, so he has some upside here as well. Maybe the outfielders, we do have some really expensive plays for you. Acuna has obviously a top tier option today. Alvarez also looking really good for Houston. And then Tucker for Houston, and then Soto for Yankees are the top 4 in the above $5,000 price ranges. But if we want to get some value here, we have plenty to look at. Josh Lowe being the top overall guy again. He was really good looking yesterday, and he's going to continue that again today, as he looks like a fantastic play here in this matchup. Duran for Boston also looks really solid at $4,600. Now, he's not hit a bunch of home runs yet this season, but he's hitting the ball pretty well. He has struggled a little bit recently, but he's still viable here. Ruiz for Oakland is a good one-off option here. He's kind of a boomer bust play, but he does draw good metrics for this game. Abreu for Boston, also very interesting today. He's hit the ball pretty well to start, and he's really been hitting good the last few games. When he does draw the start, he's definitely worth a look, and he's in a good spot right now. We got a couple other guys here to consider. Lars Nootbaar for St. Louis also has some nice upside here, though he has really struggled to start the season. The last couple of games, he's managed to get some hits and scored some fantasy points when he started. And then Michael Harris for Atlanta has a really solid opportunity here again. He's been really good the last week, or last 4 games or so, and he has some really good potential in this one as well. So really like the outfield position, guys, but it's not as cheap as it is sometimes. Now, we do have some value, some Hail Mary plays, sub $3,000 plays to talk about. So we'll start with Grisham being the top overall one at $2,600. He definitely has some good upside at second base. Another guy you can look at is Romy Gonzalez for Boston at $2,300 at shortstop. Now he's a good contrarian play, and shortstop is very weak, so he's very safe. With a very not great position situation there. Uh, Luis Matos for San Francisco is an interesting outfield position option if he does draw the start today at $2,500. Very risky here, but he definitely has some potential. At some point, Manzardo is going to do something for Cleveland. Maybe it'll be today, maybe it won't, but he's $2,200. He's worth a flyer occasionally if he can get a game going where he has a good hit. He's just dirt cheap, and he helps you pay up at other positions. Kalinick is also a really solid play for Atlanta. I really like him a lot at $2,800. He has some nice potential. Jankowski for Texas also looks pretty decent today. He's not played a ton of games, but he definitely has some good upside today. And then Joey Luperfido for Houston is a good one-off play if he ends up in the starting lineup here, as he's hit the ball pretty well the last few games. So I like him quite a bit as well. So let's go ahead and look at our stacks now. We do have some fun stacks on this one. We're looking at Houston, Atlanta, and Texas being the top overall stacks. For Houston, Alvarez, and then Tucker or Loperfido. Kind of take your pick on those. And then Altuve, Bregman, and Diaz. This is expensive, but if you switch into Loperfido, that helps you save some money. For the Braves, Acuna, Olsen, Albies, Harris, and then Ozuna or Kalinick. There's really no way around paying a lot here, but Harris and Kalinick does help a little bit. For Texas, Seager, and then one of Simeon or Garcia. Probably Garcia is a little bit safer. And then Lowe, Tavares, and then Smith or Jankowski. For the next four group, I do like these stacks quite a bit, and they do have a lot of upside. For St. Louis, Newbar, Arenado, and then Goldie or Herrera. I do like Herrera at catcher, so I think it's safe to go away from Goldie. Donovan and Gorman also look really solid. Looking at Boston, Devers, Duran, Abreu, Wong, and then either O'Neill or Grissom. And then for the Angels, I like Ward, and then either Chanel or O'Hope, and then Maniac, Adele, and Calhoun. For Minnesota, Julian, Kepler, Larnach, Kirilloff, and then Castro or Jeffers. Again, in some of these where I have the catcher being an alternate, I think that's usually a pretty good opportunity for a home run potential type of guy. And for Boston here with the Grissom, I think he's a lot cheaper than O'Neill, so he kind of helps you pay down. For the next few stacks, these teams I don't love today, but they do have some potential options. Ohtani, Freeman, either Betts or Lux, and then Outman and Pages looks the best. For the Yankees, Soto, Judge, Verdugo, and then two of the four, Volpe, Rizzo, Torres, and Wells. For Cleveland, Josh Naylor, Jimenez, Brennan, and then either Florio, Bo Naylor, Manzardo, or Rosario. I think Cleveland actually looks pretty good today. Looking at Tampa Bay, Lowe, Palacios, Diaz, Rosania, and then Paredes, and the lefties also get a boost here. For the Cubs, Bellinger, Morel, Suzuki, Horner, Hop, Tachman, or Bush. For the last two, I don't really like this stack at all, but it does have some potential today. And for San Francisco, Chapman, Matos, Estrada, Fitzgerald, and then either Reitz or Flores. Now, it's a very risky stack, obviously, but they do have a little bit of potential today. For Oakland, this is probably the weakest stack of the slate. Ruiz, Rooker, Nevin, Charbon, and Harris. It's really just kind of a Hail Mary stack all the way around. So